Hi everyone, how are you? I'm good and welcome to my channel, Nini's Storytime. I hope you all are good and are enjoying my stories. And today I'm finally going to read another one. Today we're going to read The Little Dutch Boy. Many long years ago, in the Dutch city of Haarlem, there lived a very kind little boy named Hans. Hans's father was in charge of tending the dikes or stone walls that kept the seawater from rushing into Haarlem and washing it away. One day, Hans' father left to go on a trip. Since he usually spent his days watching his father care for the dikes, Hans had nothing to do. "Why don't you take this basket of cake and bread to old Mr. Jansen?" Hans' mother asked the boy. Hans happily agreed to do this kind deed. As Hans walked through the streets of Haarlem on his way to Mr. Jansen's house, he passed the dikes. Hans noticed that the spring rains had filled the dikes to the very top. His father being away, Hans wondered who would take care of the dikes if something went wrong. Hans pressed on, his head down to fight off the wind that stung his cheeks. The boy hunched his shoulders and pulled his coat tight, trying to keep the chill from slipping through and making him colder. Hans pulled his hat down snug around his ears to keep his head from getting wet. The boy shivered as the cold, hard rain pelted him, but he kept on walking. This spring rain had been heavier than usual, pouring down hard each day and night. While the wind turned the windmills and the rain watered the tulips, the strained and swollen dikes kept filling, worrying Hans as he passed. Hans reached Mr. Jansen's house with the basket of goodies. Mr. Jansen was an older man whose eyesight was failing and who had no one to care for him. He was one of the many sick or poor people whom Hans' mother cared for. Mr. Jansen was overjoyed that Hans had come to visit him. "Sit down, my lad," the old man said. "Those goodies you have brought me smell delicious. Let's have a little bit to eat." Hans pulled the bread and cake from the basket and the two enjoyed the fresh delights. "Here you are, Mr. Jansen," the boy said. "I know that my mother's cake is your favorite." "Oh, yes it is," said Mr. Jansen with a smile. Mr. Jansen enjoyed telling the boys stories about how things were long ago and about the history of Haarlem and Hollyland, and Hans loved to listen. The old man and the boy talked and talked. They laughed and laughed. They ate all of the bread and cake. Minutes turned into hours and it was soon very late. Hans didn't realize where the time had gone, but he knew he had to get home to his mother. Hans said good night to Mr. Jansen and began the long walk home. He was sad to see that during this visit, the rain had not let up. "This will make for another very cold and wet walk," Hans thought to himself as the rain pattered down into his basket and his coat and hat. Soon, the rain began to fall a bit harder. Hans began to walk faster, the raindrops chilling him. He just wanted to get home to a nice, warm dinner and this nice, cozy bed. But the rain fell harder and harder still. Hans knew that his mother must be wondering where he was. Cold and tired, he began to run home. Hans ran and ran past the fields of tulips and past the windmills. His small wooden shoes clicked and clacked against the brick road and kept his feet warm and dry from the sloshy mud and puddles. Hans was still running when he passed one of the many dikes. Something did not look right. Hans crept closer to the dike to see. There, in the middle of the high stone wall, in a crack between the stone blocks, was a small hole. From the hole seeped a small trickle of water. While Hans knew that the dripping water looked harmless, he also knew that the water holding up behind the great wall would push at the tiny hole until it became bigger and bigger. Soon, it would let the water come rushing through, washing away the town. Hans knew he had to do something. Thinking quickly, he stuck his fist into the hole, plugging it up. While Hans stood at the leaking dike with his fist stuck in the hole, his hand the only thing keeping the water from washing away the town of Haarlem, his mother waited and worried. Hans' mother did not know the trouble that her son had discovered. She did not know that he was stuck in the middle of the raging storm, soaked to the bone from the rain, and chilled through his wet clothes by the wild, whipping wind. "Hans!" she called from the door of their house. "Hans, where are you?" If only her husband was home, she thought. He could venture into the storm and find their beloved son. But her husband was not home. There was no one to bravely find her poor lost Hans. Little did she know that Hans was showing bravery of his own. The rain kept pelting Hans, and the wind continued to swirl. But still, the boy kept his hand plugged in the hole. He knew that in order to save his town, he could not let the water break through the dike. But Hans had grown so cold. He shivered and shook. His hand had grown so tired and numb. He had to get home, but he couldn't leave the dike. "Help!" Hans called out. "Someone help me! The dike is going to burst! Help!" But the wind drowned out Hans's cries. He was sure nobody had heard him. There would be no help. Suddenly, standing before him was old Mr. Jansen. "I heard you calling, Hans," the old man said. He picked up a stone and with it plugged the hole. "My lad," said Mr. Jansen, "let's get you home, and then I'll tell everyone of the boy who saved the town." The end. So how was it? If you liked it, then make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. Well, see you in my next video. Bye!